Hey guys, welcome back. So this little video series I'm going to do is going to be about Tableau Prep, and yeah, I'm just going to jump right back into it. I hope you find something beneficial, and as always, if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments. So I'm sure if you're at this point, you probably already know what Tableau Prep is, but if you don't, Tableau Prep is kind of like the brother of Tableau Desktop, and it's used as a data preparation tool, right? So it's made by the same company and everything. You're going to be using it for data cleaning. You're going to be using it for integration, transformation, preparation, automation, basically making your life easier for the data that's coming in. Now, there's a lot of things that you can already do in Tableau Desktop um, and Tableau Prep where they both do the same thing. There are features like that, and we can talk about them later. However, Tableau Prep is a lot more useful for creating a data workflow where you know what's going to come in, what's going to happen to that data. Of course, that's going to happen in Tableau Prep, and then that data is finally prepared to then be used for dashboards in Tableau Desktop. So it'll actually make your life easier in Tableau Desktop as well. And of course, there's a ton of features in Tableau Prep that you're going to be using. You can do data profiling, there's quality assessments, you have more data output options. For example, you can create flows if your organization supports that. Those are really useful. Sorry, I mean automated flows. Those are really useful. For example, if you need some data set to be updated specifically at 6 a.m. every Thursday, and you need it to connect to a different data source than the last day. So these kind of automations are going to be done in Tableau Prep for your data. So we're going to jump right back in, or I guess jump right in, and I'm going to try to keep it really beginner, and we'll cover a few topics at a time. And yeah, I hope you find it helpful. It will get more advanced as we go on, and I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible so that I can cover the most as possible. So yeah, of course, download Tableau Prep. I'm using the latest version as of May 2024. It is not a free software, I believe. Although there are like 14-day trials. I believe there's a 1-year student trial. So if you're wondering about that, you gotta ask. I'm not entirely sure, but this is pretty much, if you're watching this video, you probably already know these basic things, or your organization supporting it. All right, so let's begin. So really quick overview. This pane here to the left, once you open it, you'll see connections, and you can add your connections here for which data type you want to connect to. We'll do that in a moment. You could open a flow that you already saved. So a flow is basically the Tableau Prep file, you could say, that you've made, right? So what are you doing to the data? What are you doing to the data? So that workflow is then saved as a flow. And that's a separate file that you could save somewhere, and you could open it here. Or basically, to start a fresh one, you would have to connect to your first data source, because you're going to need to connect to at least one data source to create a flow, right? So let's jump right in and connect to our first data source. I'm going to start off with actually the first file that I want to connect to it's a CSV file. So let me find it here. There it is. So we're going to connect. Mine is saved conveniently on the desktop. Alright, and we're connected. So let's go over some of the things on this main screen. On the left, you're going to see your connections, where of course you'll be able to add another one, because you can connect to multiple data sources, of course. You can have live updating data sources. You could have non-updating data sources, and we'll get to those after. You can have non-similar. So for example, if this is a CSV, the other one you want to connect to may be a SQL database. You could also just have 2 of these, for example. You could have 3 different types. You could have an Oracle, you could have a SQL, it keeps going. Of course, this is where you would have to do the data preparation for it to be able to work together. And that's what's great about Tableau Prep. Right below it, you have tables. Um, right now, you're not going to see a lot because this CSV file just has the one table. But for example, say if you connect it to a Microsoft SQL Server database, what's going to happen is you're going to see all the tables, of course, that you have permissions to see and use. And so that'll be helpful if you're going that route. But for now, I just have the one table that you can see here. And I'm actually just going to really quickly remove that so I can show that if there was nothing here, I can actually drag it over and add it as my first data source. And I can also just add it again and again. So there may be scenarios where you need to use it 3 different times, and you might need to do this. Again, there's a lot of creativity here, but we're going to keep it simple for now. So let's keep overlooking what we have here. So in this view, you can zoom in or zoom out, especially once if your flow starts getting bigger, you may wanna zoom out. Um, you can when if you have multiple of them, you can actually move them around, make your own kind of web design pattern. Whatever looks cool to you. The data source I have here is called I've named it 5 million sales records. It's just a sample of 5 million sales records, which is a big number, but I kept it that way on purpose because I'm going to need it. So let's click on here. When you click on here, you're going to see this screen. So what is it showing? It's showing the input that this data source has, which is 15 fields. I can immediately start filtering values. There are going to be recommendations that it gives to clean up data, etc. Although I recommend that you can use the recommendations, but ideally you already know what you want to do. We are on the data preview screen right now, so that's a little example of what the data set will look like once a table gets exported. And you also have the option for the field list, which is just a list of your fields. It looks like this. Sometimes the preview looks really wonky, and that's just depending on what kind of data that you have, if it's really messy. For example, if you have an Excel sheet with titles and labels and a bunch of highlighted stuff, maybe it's separated with commas, that can sometimes mess up the preview here, and you will be going and having to clean that up. So we can look at that in a future video. But for example, like if you had an Excel sheet with say three initial rows of just labels and titles and stuff, you actually would use Tableau Prep to delete that stuff because you don't want that going forward. Or at least perhaps you don't. Perhaps you don't, right? I mean, an Excel sheet is a lot more different than the data table that you want to use for the dashboards that you want to build. Alright, so the first thing here is settings, which is great. This is just your connection details, header options, all this. You can just go through it yourself. It's nothing crazy here that you're gonna really need. One important thing is if you're gonna need it, you could pause your data updates just so you can work on it without it needing to refresh. If you go to tables, you can see well, right now we just have the one table, so we're good. Otherwise, you'd have to, right, look at the other options here, and we can go through them later. For the data sample that you see, yeah, just you have a bunch of different options. You can go through them. They don't really help us right now. And the changes. So this is a really important field, and you should memorize where this is. And so this is going to allow you to see and potentially backtrack all the steps that you've made. So for example, if you've done like 10 things, 10 steps, right? Or 10 changes in this, and you don't remember, like for example, where a specific column went, or perhaps you renamed it. So I see this pretty often where individuals will rename the field and then they don't remember. So in that case, it's pretty easy to go to changes and then go back and see what happened. And then you can undo your changes as well, which is great, which is really helpful. Even if the changes overlap, you can still undo them, which is nice. All right, so finishing up here before and I'll start showing you guys how to do the data preparation in the next further videos. Just really quickly before this one ends, I can quickly show you. So looking at the fields here, and you can have the field list open or the data preview. Actually, let's stick on the field list. You can change what type of the data is. Like, so for example, for my region, I can change it from string to, if I wanted to change it to a date or time or number or decimal, something like that. So of course you can do this in Tableau Desktop as well, but if this is something as easy as you can quickly do it here, and of course if you're checking through your fields, then it's very important. You could do that. And that'll be useful. Of course, if it's something more complex, then you're going to need a calculation or a calculated field. But yeah, that's very useful, right here. And as well, right over here, you can change the field name if you want to. Um, that's done by renaming field right here. So for example, if you don't want it region, you could change it to whatever, but I'm going to keep it region. And then that would just save automatically. You can also remove fields that you don't want. So remembering that part of data preparation is removing the data that you're not going to be needing, right? So if it saves you space, why not do that, right? So this would be the perfect place to start removing columns that you don't need. Of course, for more complex, if you want to remove specific parts of the data, we're going to cover that later. But if it's as simple as removing the field, we can just do that right here. Or just hide it if you don't need it right now. It won't load the data, but as it says over there, the data won't load, but your field will still be included in your flow output. Okay, yeah, so that's all I'm going to cover this video, and then I'll start working on data preparation in the next one, and yeah, thanks for watching. You can ask any questions that you have in the comments. All right, bye.